Just keep the head down and you don't overly think about who's going to be the manager. A lot of the senior players sort of looked at you at that time, and not that you were a yes man for Tommy Lyons, but you always had his back as a selector, or maybe a bit wary that it was going to be the same again, and they didn't enjoy those last couple of years under Tommy Lyons. But they all stressed that whatever happened at that first meeting, you just blew them away with your vision for what Dublin football could be. What's your memory of that?
I would, I'd be very defensive of Tommy Lyons. Tommy Lyons came in and, changed things. Things had to change. Like, it was the end of the 95 era, like them fellas who'd won the All-Ireland. They'd been around for so long. And the history of it is quite weird looking back on it now, because we couldn't win an Leinster title back then. Mickey will tell you the story. He was there for a while, and then Tommy Carr was there, and it was just, it was full of hard luck stories, in Leinster finals and whatever. And then Tommy came in and he brought a gang of these young fellas, and he believed in them, and he threw 5 or 6 of them in that first day down in Wexford, against Wexford, and it took off, and we won the Leinster title that year. Rolled on, I got to an All-Ireland semi-final and played very well against Armagh. Were pipped by a point. People remember for Ray Cosgrove's late miss or whatever, but Tommy had changed things very drastically over a short period of time for the better. But then, I suppose as a group, as a management team, you take responsibility. We kept trying to evolve it, and I think we probably took too many gambles the following year in bringing in more young, talented players, and we got defeats in Leinster, which, wasn't acceptable. And then a losing dressing room, the players start losing faith in the management start wondering that the players still believe in, and eventually it does crumble, and that's the way it happened. But I would have nothing bad to say about Tommy Lyons.
The level of professionalism seemed to change pretty quickly once Pillar came in terms of what the players were given, that he expected for nothing anymore.
Yeah, I don't know that we ever, to be honest, we were very fortunate, and in terms of we were always kind of well looked after, in the sense I don't think there was ever a feeling that our needs in terms of what we were getting training wise or content wise wasn't there. But I think when Pillar came in, to me, it was as much the guys he brought with him were very impressive guys, and straight from the off, again from that first meeting, it was very clear there was a clean slate. We were there as a group to get better. There was very clear messages, and I think over those first couple of weeks he brought guys like Paul Clark in, he'd Ski Wade involved. There was guys who were good coaches, and you could see straight away there was going to be an emphasis on, in terms of, there was a reward if you're going to work hard, give everything, and as players that's all you want. It was getting to the stage where it was dragging on, and I have a recollection that we as players had met and we were starting to get our own gym programme together and stuff like that, which isn't ideal, but it probably showed where our heads were at in terms of trying to make sure that we didn't leave it go on too long. And I think that was obvious then from the start. We knew we'd underperformed in the previous 2 years, so there was probably a bit of pressure on us to make sure that we stepped up. And I think that year, as Pillar said, we were struggling in Leinster. We had 2 poor performances in 2003 against Laois and 2004 against Westmeath, and there was a bit of pressure on us going into Leinster that year to make sure we got back to a certain level.
Yeah, well, it was one Leinster title between winning the All-Ireland in 95 and from when you did it again in 2005. When do you look at that team, Pillar, and think, yeah, they were exactly where I wanted them to be? Was it 05? Was it by the time you got to the semi-final 06?
No, very much 06. I can't fucking get any more than my fucking head, but you're
sitting right there.
How many years too late is it he's looking retired? But no, we improved greatly in 05, but we came up against a really, really good Tyrone team, and I think that Tyrone team, when you look back on it, it'd stand the test of time against any of the great winning teams, the calibre of player they have. But I could see, and I knew we'd made a big step forward in 05. 06 we built on it again, and again I felt, yeah. But you know what, each of the 4 years that we won Leinster, I felt that the group was getting more belief about themselves, they were getting more confidence about themselves. But look, the year we should have gotten to the All-Ireland final, didn't. Mayo put in a fantastic second half display, and like Kieran MacDonald's winning score, I still have nightmares about it. But if it wasn't to be, I remember as a guard on duty 3-4 weeks later, whatever it was, I was in the back of the Cusick stand looking down and watching 3 goals go in the first 10 minutes and nearly looking up to heaven saying, thanks be to Jesus it wasn't us down there getting the hammering, because that
Kerry team were
special as well, and look, GA is full of hard luck stories or whatever, but we weren't good enough. Much and all, as the players tried everything for them 4 years, and we as management team, we were just that little bit short of Tyrone and Kerry, who were the real benchmarkers. Okay, we can him and haw over whether we shouldn't have lost a 6 or 7 point lead against Mayo, but I'd give great credit to Mayo for the half that they put in that day.
Eamon, what's your memory of the Mill on the Hill?
Well, I got brought on to the panel in 2005 after winning Leinster with the 21s, and that year Pillar kind of gave the 21s a fair crack at the whip at the O'Byrne Cup, and we had a good year that year. I think we beat Wicklow down in Auckland, which was a big win for 21s against the Wicklow team, and then had a great year in 2005, getting up to speed with where the lads are. Like, I remember coming in, you're sitting beside Whelan, Collie Moran, Paddy Christie, J.O. You're kind of in awe, and it takes you a while to settle in, and that kind of played on me a bit, if I was being honest with you. Pillar dropped me about 4 times throughout his career with Dublin.
Now's the time to settle old scores.
He bought me a pint in the Gravediggers before, so it's all good now. But he had me on the panel in 06, dropped me off, brought me back on, and dropped me back off again. So I remember thinking, fuck him.
Oh, yeah, actually, you said it. Yeah.
I was actually that day. I was in the stand after being. He called me twice that year for A versus B games to make up the numbers, and I cancelled the holiday to go to one of these games. And Davy Byrne from Ballymun and
nice fella.
Yeah, and someone else was there. That Pillar dropped as well, so the three of us were just like
Bonding.
Where's his car parked?
Where did you come up with the idea of the players marching towards the hill?
You asking me?
Yeah.
It was actually Mossy's idea.
I've had lots of bad ideas. That wasn't one of mine.
I think it was Shane Ryan that came up with it, actually. He just said...
You're just throwing a blame at players that aren't here to defend themselves.
No, look, we were trying to, I suppose, back in them days, for some reason or another, every game we were playing was packed houses. There was absolutely... Somebody gave me a stat in Croke Park shortly after I was gone and said, Pillar, I think I was in charge for 21 championship games, and 20 of the games were in Croke Park. We'd one near miss down in Longford where we just got out of it alive. But all the other games were in Croke Park, and the average attendance of the 20 games from 05 to 08 was 72,000. So the place was rocking. And it became part of, look, how do you approach the warm-up, what do the players do, and this just evolved out of the group, and it became the thing for a while. You don't win in All-Ireland, people throw stuff at you, and you're fair game, and that's the way it is.
Did any part of you ever think that what happened that day against Mayo pre-match, where a team would respond and go, you know what, we're just going to go down the hillside and we're going to warm up there? Did that ever come into your thinking, that a team might try and counter it?
No, in fairness. It's very specific in Croke Park. You're actually given a dressing room, and you're now told which end you warm up in. But it was always the case that we always tugged out in the Hill 16 dressing room.
Coincidence.
And we always come out and went left. So, look, Andy, you can probably answer. I'm convinced to this day it was David Brady that led the charge. And
let's bring him in. Andy Moran. Did David Brady, who's not here to defend himself yet again, we invite him to all these roadshows, but he hasn't yet to turn up.
Yeah, he'll tell you he did, but no, we were going in on the bus, and everyone, to be fair, you always want to play against the Dubs. As Pillar was saying, the place was packed, it was rocking. We were going in, there was Mooney's being pulled, there was every sort of gesture that could have been pulled to the bus was brilliant. And we were down the back of the bus, and the crack, honestly, I can remember to this day, everyone was out in the back. It was like we were going to a party. So we went in, and I think Tyrone and Armagh warmed up under the hill. Maybe the year before, the year previous to that, did the Pillar. I think the two teams went the same side and there was war. So there was a bit of crack all week, we might do it. And we just sat down for the photo, and David Heaney just said, "Come on to fuck," he said. And he just, up off the seat, bang, went left. The most un-David Heaney move of all time. And we went down and there was cracking. I remember you were kicking ball. It was a 30-yard kick pass. He used to do it. And Trevor Howley, who didn't play much first, but he played a few championship games for us. He just stood in the middle of this and he took 30 shoulders. Like I was thinking, he couldn't play. He was gone. That was one sub gone. Our nutritionist got bust. Pillar put John Morrison into a headlock. Do you know, there was just, it was a great day, but it was just brilliant.
The game hadn't started then.
We have the photo there. Is it yourself and John Morrison?
God be good to John, yeah. But no, it was, there was repercussions. I got a match suspension afterwards, so somebody had to take the punishment over. But no, did it change the game? No, not at all. Actually, when you look back in the atmosphere at the start, Andy, was absolutely... I never heard the noise in the place. And, we played quite well, so it didn't affect the performance. Obviously, the result went against us.
But even if you look at a Pillar, what are we, 2019, you're going... Dublin are going for 5 in a row, we're still talking about it, wasn't it? Isn't it amazing? Like, I see Conor Mort there going fighting, like, you'd be taking him on yourself. You should have went after him, not Morrison, but it was... I just thought it was a remarkable day. I know it finished well for us, but great point. You were 7 points up. Should have probably killed the game. Joe, we probably got a few lucky breaks. Joe, there was so many things in it. I think Keith Higgins got a great block off Alan Brogan. But remember Mark Vaughan's free, 50 yards out. He couldn't hit it any better. Amazing free. And Clarkey gets up over the crossbar and hits it. So the luck was on our side. It was a great day and just great memory,
I have a bit of a routine that every so often, you might be sitting at home on a Tuesday night, 10 o'clock, you switch on Air Sport or TG Cahir and they're showing classic games. And it gets to around 45 minutes and Dublin are leading by 7 points. And I'll drop Mossy a text going, switch on Air Sport, you're 7 points up in the All-Ireland semi-final. I wonder what's going to happen next.
Nathan, actually, if he'd a mastermind specialist subject, it'd be the Mayo Dublin game 2006. Every time I see him, it's the one thing.
Well, 46 minutes, Mayo are 7 points down. And Mickey Moran looks down the sideline and he goes, what do we need? We need Andy Moran. What did he tell you going on the pitch?
Yeah, he brought me on for James Nallen. Kevin Bonner, wasn't it, that you played for? Kevin goes, I was going off. I loved James Nallen. I think he was, coming into the squad, he was probably my hero, and he was running off, and Kevin goes, great game, Jimmy, And I thought he was pulling the piss out of Jimmy. I go, John, fuck you, and hit him, and we went up, we got the goal, we got a few points, we're right back in the game, and you took off Kevin for Colleen Moore, and he comes up to me, great game, Andy. And the game was in the melting pot. I was like, what is this man doing? I thought he was acting the lug a few minutes before, but it was... we just, genuinely, we had two geniuses playing for us at the time in Kevin O'Neill and Kieran McDonald. If you look at the influence of the game just at the time, I think if you had your time again, you'd have probably stuck someone on Kevin O'Neill and just said, don't let him touch the ball. And, I think Kieran gets an awful lot of the credit, but Kevin O'Neill probably made the game kind of take a tiny bit for us, and it just made it work, Do
you have many regrets from the 4 years? Like, do you think back to individual games and moments and things that could have been done differently?
10 times, no? One of them, no?
Buying Emo point in the digger. One of the big regrets. But,
I definitely have, in the sense that, and I'm always interested when you hear sports people saying they've no regrets. I think they're bullshitting when they say that, because I'd be amazed if somebody goes through a whole career. And the one that I will forever have, if you'd asked me, could I take one play back from my Dublin career, it was in the 2008 quarter-final against Tyrone, when early on in the rain, and we'd actually started okay, and I was in on goal, and I'd Dermot to my left, I'd one defender here, and I put a hand pass over his head, and I'd say I've done that move in my life 10,000 times, and we've got it right every time bar that one. And if I could have one play back or one, and it's not something that I dwell on or I think about a lot, but if you'd ask me, could I change something? Honestly, you're right. But it was definitely one. If I could have one back, if you'd say, right, Mossy, you can go back, and I've missed frees, I've missed chances, but that was the one, because I think, look, that was a brilliant Tyrone team, and they went and they beat us pretty comfortably, but that was at a stage of the game where a goal there, it would have been very interesting to see how that had gone, and that would be one I'd like back anyway.
And as Pillar said, the winners always get the glory, and things are brushed aside very easily when you win in All-Ireland. When you look back on that moment, and it's distilling to split seconds, mentally, was there something that you took the wrong decision at the time compared to different stages of your career?
Well, usually in that situation, I pride myself on having a pretty good picture of what I'm trying to do, whether I'm going for goal myself or whether I'm going to give it. And I can't remember who the defender was. It was Kieran Gorley was the guy who I got the ball in front of, so I can't remember who was backpedaling. And he did a very good job where he didn't make up my mind for me. Ideally, I would have wanted him to come at me so I could give it to Dermot, or if he totally backed off, then I was going to shoot. And he kind of had me in two minds. And when I'm going for goal, I usually like to see, I like to try and see a picture of the goal of where it's empty, and that's where I'm going. And I didn't I saw one down the bottom corner, but it was a straight on kick, wouldn't have been my favourite kick, so I decided to give it to Dermot, and probably at the last minute, and I just put it half the foot, like an inch too high, and I missed it. So it was, now at the time on the pitch, I remember running out by him going, don't worry, we get the next one. And about 2 minutes later, Sean Kavanagh puts one in the far end, and you're like, yeah, that wasn't it. It's tough, but like, that's definitely. I don't think it was a mental thing. It was a misexecution on my part, and it was probably a slight hesitation being in that situation. And that's the frustration. It was something that I do quite a lot. It's not something me being asked to win a ball in midfield or do something that wouldn't become naturally to me. And that's probably why it's one that would stick in my mind.
It felt like there was at that stage, and maybe it's still there because of the size of Dublin, but just insane amount of pressure on you and Mark Vaughan as the free takers, that the Hill reacted. If one didn't go over, they were very quick to get on your back.
I don't recall it like that, to be honest. I do. What Pillar was saying about the crowds, though, was definitely something that probably took a little bit of getting used to. Like, we played a Leinster quarter-final in 2005 against Wexford, and it was part of a double bill, but there was 82,000 people at it. And you had to get used to that very quickly in terms of the sounds in the stadium are different. You can't hear anyone. And so it's hard to replicate that when you're practicing your free taking. But it was something. I would have put pressure on myself. I would have had standards on myself, or within the group, or what. Like, we would have had certain targets to go after. So whether it was me or whether it was Mark, we tried to get that level of consistency. And I'd be you look at the numbers Dean Rock is hitting at the moment, and his are off the charts, And I think it's something as every free taker you strive to get to that. And I think I always tried in terms of keep a routine. Try and stick to what I was doing, practicing either out here or whether it was in Parnell Park or up in St David's. And I always tried to. I didn't really feel the pressure. Like, there's no doubt there was sometimes you'd miss a free and you can hear the groan or you can hear the sounds, but it wasn't something I ever dwelt on. It was something I would have had a pretty good selective, or to be a good free taker you have to have a selective short-term memory, and if you miss one from that spot you don't even think about it, but if you've got one you're running out going, oh sure, I got one from here a couple of minutes ago. And but that is the mental side of things is probably the biggest challenge of a free taker.
Just on, and I don't know if even people appreciate, like, watching Dean Rock. We've grown up on Jimmy Keaveney, and then you were into the Charlie and Barney era, and Mossy and Mark Vaughan or whatever, but like, I think somebody said Dean Rock is at 20 or 21 frees in his last 4 games or something crazy like that. So the numbers he's hitting year after year, like, he's hitting 90% most years from frees. Like, free takers aren't doing that up and down the country. It's crazy consistent, and obviously Dublin are hugely benefit from them figures, and it's driving the whole thing through the roof.
Because of the dominance of this current team, it's easy for people to look back on that team and say nearly men, but not taking into account what had gone in the decade before, that you had transformed that team into one that were winning Leinster titles consistently and well, and very much the breeding ground of what was to come afterwards. It also seemed like an incredibly enjoyable time, that you enjoyed that success, maybe too much, but where was it? The Sunnybank was the regular place after the Leinster finals, Eamon? When you were involved?
The Sunnybank after the game, then Hollystown on the Monday, and then wherever Pillar wasn't on the Tuesday.
It must be a nightmare having the guard as your manager.
It was the taxi man that I later found out used to catch us out. So, I remember one time Pat rang us and said, go home. And I said, why? He goes, I know you're out. And I said, no. And then I was like trying to cover myself because the phone, this was like February or something like that. And he goes, no, taxi man's at the time, he's after dropping you off into Harcourt Street. I went, oh my God, you can't get away with anything. He said. But like, for me back then, it was enjoyable. Like, you're coming into a team and you were learning so much. And for me, like, I was 20 coming into the team in 2005, never been in the gym before in my life. And then Clarkie's telling me that I need to put on 10 kg and squat all these numbers that were off the Richter scale. And then you just find yourself going, right, I need to change so much about myself that that transition. And at the time, for me as a midfielder, you had Kieran Whelan, Darren Holman, Darren McGee, Declan O'Mahony, John Coughlin. Pillar loved midfielders, and then Brian Talty was involved, and there's about 8 people vying for 2 positions, Shane Ryan. So you were constantly looking for extra bits to try and get in there. But I remember coming in, and Wheelo, I hit him his shoulder where he wasn't looking, and I bounced off him and he didn't even break his stride. I remember just thinking, oh my God, what were them numbers Clark was saying that I have to hit in the gym? Because I realised there and then I was so far off the pace. But in today's game, I don't think you get a chance to get, so anyone that's coming into the panel, if they're not ready-made to try and come in and make a stand into that team, they're just going to be gone straight away. But Pillar, in fairness to him, he gave us time to try and get in there and develop, because it was going from Tommy Lyons of running the lads to Pillar bringing a more physical element. We had to get up to the likes of Tyrone, we had to get up to the likes of Armagh, and to do that we needed to put on weight, we needed to put on muscle, and we needed to be able to get contact on men. And as young lads, that takes time. But I think for me the enjoyment came from just having the crack with the lads. When you weren't involved as much on the pitch, off the pitch you tend to enjoy it a bit more. And that was a bit of it.
We had, and it's funny when you look back and you talk about the enjoyment, and certainly we played a Leinster semi-final in 2005. We beat Wexford, and again it took us all our time to beat them. I think we got a goal I think Joe got a goal come on as a sub in the 60-something minute, and we kind of got over the line, and like that we had a good night on the Sunday night. But the Monday was always a tradition. We'd go golfing, and when I say golfing, loosely golfing Hollystown for a couple of hours, and then a good few of us had gone home. That was enough. We were done. And I remember at the time, there was a guy who used to bring us around. There was a bus, and a few lads had got on the bus, and I was at home one day, and it was a summer's evening, Monday evening. I'd gone home. I'd been at the golf, but I decided not to have a few drinks. Drove home, and the lads got Brian Cullen to ring me. And Brian is the most dependable guy, or one of the most dependable guys on the squad, and very straight-laced. And Brian rings me and says, "Listen, we're after getting DVDs of that game done in the last quickly, and Davey and Pillar want you to get it. We're going to have a look at it during the week." I says, "Grand, yeah." I says, "Well, I'll meet you tomorrow." And he says, No, you're going to have to come outside your house." And I says, "Yeah, okay, yeah." And so I walked outside, and I says, "Where are you?" And he says, I'll be around the corner in a minute. I'll come down." And my mother was standing two driveways down talking to a few neighbours, and it was like you could hear rustling, a scene in Jurassic Park where the bushes move, and you kind of look. And I looked again, and all of a sudden I saw Kieran Whelan, Shane Ryan and Brian Cullen running. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And you see this minibus pulling up at the top, and about 10 lads get off, and they're all jumping up and down, and they're dancing, and they're like, "We're going out." So we actually drove around Dublin that night. I'm sorry, when I got on the bus, I was there thinking we're going to be killed for this. Pillar and Cathal Jackson, the owner, Copperface Jacks, were sitting up the front of the bus. And there was 2 cases of beer, and so we actually drove. They'd come out and got me, and we drove, and we ended up making our way. I just remember heading over Castleknock direction, so we ended up at the Brogans. Someone, I think Wheeler stuck his arse through Barry Call's parents' banisters trying to get Barry down. And it was going great until we got to we eventually, and we were a couple hours on the bus, and we got to Conall Keeney's house, and we rang the doorbell, and it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning, and Connell's dad is you wouldn't mess around with him too much, and he opened the door, and it was like, I think it took a couple of brave men to go by him. I think it was Darren Holman or Whelan, and everyone else scattered the other direction, So, but again, that night we ended up there was guys coming in flip-flop shorts. They were whatever you were wearing, you were taking in. And
Barry Cattle had pyjamas on. It's the one thing I couldn't get, in
the middle of summer.
Yeah, Wheelo fell through his banisters through the whole thing and wrecked the gaff. And all I could remember was he's wearing pyjamas. I've never seen a grown man wear pyjamas.
I want to get our next guest on stage, because obviously it's not just the Dublin men who are dominating at the moment. The Dublin ladies are very much running the show as well, and they'll be going for 3 in a row this Sunday week when they take on Galway in that final. And I want to get one of the ladies who started it all off. She was the captain back in 2010. Please give it up for Denis Masterson. We're going to bring the rest of our panel out as well. Pillar, Eamon, Mossy are going to join us because we are going to look ahead to both finals. Grab a seat, lads. Scoot yourselves over there. You stay there, lads. This all looks perfectly fine. So, splitting the dubs. Men's and ladies. It'll have to be a dual thing.
Yeah.
The women's team, this is the 6th final in a row, but there was 3 defeats in there as well. Talk us back to 2010 though, when you were the captain, and where Dublin ladies football was then, and how big a moment that was for you personally and for ladies football in the capital.
Well, starting with me personally, I feel about 60 sitting up here because I came to football really late at 23, so Andy saying he's old at 35 retiring, and I just been so lucky with the run I had. But when I started, actually, it's funny, Dublin were in the All-Ireland final against Galway in 2004. That was my first season up at the senior ladies team, so it's funny that it's Galway they're up against now. But Dublin were in 2 All-Ireland finals in 2003 and 2004, and after that there was kind of a mass exodus of players, and it was really a rebuilding phase and some really, really tough days. But like the lads were saying, some of your best memories, I suppose, come from those moments, but ours would be a lot more dire than theirs. Like, there might have been nights of training. I remember one particular session, and I think we had about 8 players at the training session. Like, morale was really low, and the fellow we had in coaching us at the time was roaring at us. None of his drills were working, but he didn't understand we physically did not have enough players at the training session for the drills to work.
And why was that? Why wasn't the interest levels there?
It just, after 2004, like I said, there were a lot of the more experienced girls left. We struggled in ladies football at that stage. We really struggled to get a manager in. The structures wouldn't have been as good, certainly weren't then, if we only had 8 players at training, and it was really hard to get people out. And I suppose success breeds success, and we hadn't had any. Dublin had never won in All-Ireland. And again, I suppose there was a core group of girls there and really drove it on. And I don't know if it was Mossy who was saying about the lads starting to get together to get their own gym and stuff together. Well, with the ladies, we really had to drive it ourselves at stages. I suppose we started getting more and more competitive. The team started getting a little more settled. And in 2009, we got to an All-Ireland final and were well up against Cork and lost by a point, which was tough. And then in 2010, we really went hard at it, and we beat Tyrone. Funny because, about enjoying moments in a game, or that, like, I think we might have been 16 points up against Tyrone, but we were that scarred by the defeat. I remember taking a sideline ball, and someone on the line, there might have been 10 minutes left, was like, "We have it." And I was like, "There's 10 minutes." Like, we were 16 points up, I think, at the stage, but I was taking no chance. So, like, 10 minutes to go. Like, we were so driven. And I suppose to be captain on a day when you win your first All-Ireland for your county, it's just a very proud day.
And also, well deserved a round of applause. And it's so tough at that stage to make the breakthrough, because you're going up, and that Cork side were just an unbelievable team. Like, they used, for year after year after year after year, just brought the ladies' game to a whole new level.
Oh, they did, and ran Dublin, I suppose, as close as I think they're going to be run this year, last weekend in the All-Ireland semi-final. And they really did raise the bar. And I suppose, again, listening to the lads, ladies football has been so dynamic and it's grown so fast that we're kind of jumping through a lot of the stages, like when the lads are saying that they probably wouldn't be out on the tear as much now, and nutrition and all that coming into it, whereas I think these changes happened really quick over ladies. And to look at the Dublin ladies team last weekend, and I suppose it helps that Mick Bohan has come from the men's into the ladies, and the professionalism, and you can really see the improvement. And Cork probably set that bar, and I think Dublin have taken over the mantle now, to be honest.
I'd imagine, and as we've been going around the country, we've been talking to a lot of ladies footballers, and you still hear some of the horror stories of the conditions and the lack of expenses and the difficulty in getting pitches that are still there. When did you notice a change in attitude within Dublin towards ladies football?
And I suppose that's the importance as well in ladies football and having success, because I suppose winning the All-Ireland in 2010 gave us a bit more of a platform. In fairness to the girls, once we started rebuilding and with that core group, we were really driving it from within. I mean, the ladies players probably have to graft it out a little bit harder, because we don't get, everything you do, you're kind of fighting for, and I suppose it builds a great camaraderie. In 2010, we had a great management team, we had great individuals. In terms of resources, we probably still didn't have them. We got to 3 All-Ireland finals then, obviously 2014, 15 and 16, which we lost. And again, things were getting better. For me personally, I do believe Mick Bohan coming in, he's brought a whole different dimension in terms of how the ladies team are looked after, and I suppose the esteem in which they're held and how he treats them. And I think that's reflected in how they're producing performances on the pitch.
It wasn't straightforward for this team. We're looking at them now and we wonder how many they can go on and win consecutively.
Yeah.
Like 3 All-Ireland final defeats in a row could have stalled progress, because it's easy just to get downhearted. It's incredibly difficult to come back and think this is going to be the year. Like, the resilience they've shown is something, actually another asset that maybe they have that other great teams haven't had, because they haven't had it easy the whole way through. They haven't dominated the whole time.
No, definitely not. And like, no more than Andy, it hasn't just been All-Ireland finals. Like, we had serious battles against Cork in All-Ireland quarterfinals where we went toe-to-toe. We may have been 10 points up, lost by a point, and we were probably the only team maybe that were going to compete with them at that level. They might have gone on then to hockey teams and All-Ireland finals. So it wasn't just in the All-Ireland final stages that we had these competitions with Cork. Like, we had them in earlier stages and just didn't make it to the All-Ireland final. But yeah, it's been tough, and I suppose, you know, there's a core group of people within the ladies football in Dublin who are completely behind the scenes, who do a lot to drive it as well.
Ladies football, it feels, is in a good place. Certainly it has its big day in the sun in the All-Ireland final that they're getting huge crowds for, and there's been some good rivalries between Mayo and Dublin and Cork over the last few years that have really driven it on and up the profile. There's probably still a lot more to do in the provincial championships and in the round robin series to up the interest levels and to increase the semi-final attendance up from 10,000 in Croke Park last weekend. Standard wise, when you look at what we're going to see between Dublin and Galway, where is it from when you started out in 03-04?
Just the fitness levels are probably at a different level. I mean, the strength and conditioning started coming into it probably, you know, maybe 2008, 2009, and that's been brought to a new level as well. I mean, the girls would be seriously strong. You know, there's a lot of women now who would be strong advocates for bringing the shoulder into ladies football, because we're probably more physically equipped to deal with that sort of stuff now. Nutrition, psychologists, you know, like I said, it's following the men's game. It's just probably doing it at a much quicker pace, you know, that way. So yeah, there'd be a huge change in terms of standard skill levels as well. I think girls are starting so young. Like I said, I only started playing football when I was 23. For me to even make the senior team, I don't think that would happen now, you know. But my, I suppose, fitness and my doggedness in terms of I was willing to run up and down the pitch, you know, I could do that, but I don't think girls would get away with that now. I think the skill level is completely different with young girls starting from such a young age.
Of course, Mayo were robbed in the semi-final, Andy, which I don't want to...
Controversial.
No point talking about that.
The standard of us has gone through the roof, isn't it? We have Catherine Sullivan that played wing back for Mayo. Works for us, and I couldn't believe it. Last week was amazing. Like, the Mayo Galway game was so quick, and then the Cork Dublin game was in a different level, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It sort of felt like that Cork Dublin game was the All-Ireland final.
Yeah, to be honest, I would think that Cork Dublin are probably, you know, slightly ahead of the pack. I think Dublin are probably even starting to go that little bit step ahead of Cork, and you know, it's a young Dublin team. Whilst they had great experienced players like Siobhan McGrath getting man of the match, you know, she'd be one of the older people on the teams now, if not the oldest, at 32. Whereas, as I suppose, when we won the All-Ireland in 2010, there was a group of us in or around that age, which made, I think, the transition from 2010 on different as well. Whereas as now, I mean, there's a lot of girls on that team who are only 18, so you would kind of be very hopeful for what the Dublin ladies are going to go on and achieve now in the next 5-10 years. You know, I think they'll go on to dominate.
Ladies footballers are very good, I think, at looking at the bigger picture, more so than maybe their male counterparts who focus more on just their own team. And there's a definite sense when you do talk to the ladies footballers that they want to grow the game and they know the importance of growing the game for everybody. Dublin winning that All-Ireland final well may not be the best thing for the game.
No, I mean, like, I know 10,000 at the All-Ireland semi-final seems ridiculous when we'd be talking about games in the Super 8s or whatever being played in Croke Park and it being a low attendance because there's 30,000 there and it's a dreadful atmosphere. But you have to compare that with semi-finals for the ladies last year where there might have only been 1,000 people at them. So that's huge for ladies football, and I think it's a very innovative kind of association in terms of it's constantly driving, constantly trying to improve it. But the flagship day is All-Ireland final day, so you want it to be a good game. And I suppose Dublin Cork, Dublin Mayo, you know, they've been good games, they've been tight games, and you would be fearful that, you know, you don't want Dublin to go out and absolutely, for the game, you don't want Dublin to go out and hockey Galway. As a Dublin supporter, you want Dublin to go out and hockey Galway. But like you said, the ladies football association is constantly trying to, you know, create that interest, and if that's the day where we get our biggest attendance and biggest viewerships, you do want it to be a good spectacle. So
it's just I think the more that happens, the more it becomes the norm. So having the semi-finals there is a good step, and I think you've seen in recent years the ladies playing before the men's league matches in Croke Park and things like that, and I think that's really important as an initiative in terms of participation levels. It's easier if you're bringing a daughter into Croke Park and there's a ladies match on beforehand and a men's match after, and that becomes, well, this is what happens, this is what we're used to seeing. And I think there's an onus on the governing bodies, and I know there's a lot of work being done, I suppose, between camogie and ladies football probably initially, and then perhaps bringing it in under the one banner. And I think for real progress, I think to continue, and ladies football is evolving very quickly. I think that's a great starting point to be able to say, well, is there games we can match them up, and similarly, can you do the same with camogie and hurling, and give that opportunity to try and give a balance to it. And I think that's the start, and I think it's going to continue to go like that.
Well, with your work hat on, obviously AIG have come in and have sponsored all the Dublin teams, and you would imagine for most big sponsors that it makes total sense that they are getting in on every possible audience.
Yeah, I'm amazed now when I see county boards, if they launch a new jersey or they have a new sponsor, that it doesn't include the ladies teams and the camogie teams. And there's a number of teams, and Cork had a perfect example. Like the Cork ladies go out on Sunday and they would have worn a different jersey than what the men's teams are wearing, and a different sponsor. And from a commercial perspective, and I can't take any credit for AIG's original deal was in just as I got the job, so it was done before me, but it's something we've tried to do with subsequent partners. So any partnerships we bring in, my role is for Dublin County Board, which is football and hurling, but I'm in a fortunate position that if I feel there's an opportunity there to cover ladies football and camogie, I can make a call to either of those boards, and they're generally both very happy to come in, and we've tried to do that. So any partnerships we've brought in the last 2 or 3 years, we try and make sure that there's the same goes to the ladies team, so that the ladies footballers now coming in the next couple of weeks, so we'll get similar to what the men's are getting at the moment, and camogie should be trying to get the same. And any launch events that we do, or it's never just the Dublin senior football team. There's generally one from each code at it, and it's a positive for the brand. There's no doubt about it. But from a promotion of games in Dublin, it's something we feel strongly about, and it's something we're trying to make sure that you'll very rarely see a picture, unless it's at a time of year where the hurlers are gone at the moment. You're not going to have a hurler there, but certainly anything early on in the year, any of the advertising you're going to have, and it's to make sure there should be role models there that people are recognising. I think the ladies team are doing a great job on the pitch, which obviously makes bigger inroads, but there is a number of that ladies team now that you could look at and you'd know who they are straight away. And like I've a daughter who's 5, she's turning 6, she's starting to play football down here, and I know going to watch these lady games, she recognises them now. She watched the semi-final, and you can see that, and I think that's a great thing to have.
Should tidy corner forward.
Hopefully, yeah.
Are you managing the team now? Have you come full circle?
No, not at the moment.
Would you come down and manage the team on a Friday, Saturday? Come on, Mossy, it's time to get back.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I actually find it really interesting listening to Andy, and it seems like he's got a clear path in terms of that he will go into coaching, and I don't have any real desire to do that, certainly in terms of I'm content trying to stay playing. I'm trying to hang in there playing senior football, but I have been coming down to the mini leagues here in the last year, and I generally have my son with me who's too young to start, so I kind of have a ready-made excuse that when they say, will you jump in with the girls under 5s, I'm saying, well look, I have him with me, he can't do it at the moment. But to be honest with you, that will change. Like I will, hopefully in the next year or two, when he is old enough to go into his own group, then I will start spending a bit of but to be honest, that's the only interest I'd have at the moment, in terms of I don't have any real ambition. Like I've been forced to play under some excellent coaches, and maybe it's something I'll regret in time, that if someone in how many years' time if I do decide coaching, I don't know that I certainly haven't taken enough physical notes or physical, like it may be something that I'll recall in time, but there's guys who I know who I've played with or I play with at the moment, and you can see they're ready made to go into that side of things, and they're picking up things and they're watching things, and but certainly from a juvenile perspective I'd be more than happy to come back and try and help, certainly around here. Yeah.
Have you been doing that, Andy? Have you, in the last 3-4 years, when you've been working with a variety of different coaches at Mayo, both management and behind the scenes, like, do you go home, take notes, here's something I can take forward?
I think you probably look at the stuff that people would be doing wrong more so than what they'd be doing right, you know, because like even in like we've our own business, so I'd be managing a kind of team and that side of things, so you'd be saying the way you communicate what you do. I was even asking Mickey there, he was saying that like he puts scenarios in place and how to move, you know, not to force people to learn and stuff. Like I find all that stuff interesting. The thing I always think about coaching is it's like everything. You could be good at it, it just mightn't suit you. My thing is to go in there, see what I'm like. If I'm good enough, I will stick at it. If I'm not, I'll be news talk. Do you have a job for me? No.
Well, we know that's not the case, Andy. Obviously, you called somebody else first, but that's fine. We mightn't answer the call this time.
There's too many Mayo voices in there.
No, never enough Mayo voices. Never enough Mayo voices.
Where's Brady?
He'll storm in any moment, I'd imagine.
But can I just say something on the ladies' game? If you look at where Mayo came from last year, the Mayo ladies came from last year to where they were last Sunday. That was phenomenal. Whatever they did under Peter Lee, the girls, it was a phenomenal rise. Like, we were in disarray, the ladies, last year with what happened behind
They're
the
missing
scenes.
10 of their players.
But we were still missing them, 10. Do you know, we were missing like game changers, like, do you know. And the girls went in, worked hard, and to be honest, what they produced last Sunday was amazing. Are they at the level of the second game? No. But if they produce that same amount of ground again next year, Joe, God knows, you know.
We are here tonight with thanks to SuperValu, who are celebrating 10 years as sponsors of the All-Ireland Football Championship. Let's turn our attention to this Sunday then, and Andy, you were up close, itching to get on in that sort of 12-minute spell, which a lot of people feel is as good a 12-minute spell as any team has ever produced. What do you put it down to? Do you think it was that good? Did Mayo run out of steam? Or was the way Dublin played just the style of football that nobody could contend with?
I think there's a few things in it. What people don't realise was a really, you wouldn't call it a strong wind, but a dirty wind. You know that wind that comes in from the hill sometimes?
Yeah, it's swirl.
Wind was it?
Yeah. I'm telling you, you were pushing it down. No, but Dublin, what was it? 8-6 at half time. 8-6 at half time. You couldn't shoot long. You couldn't get 35 out of it. Like, there was no long range point in the first half from the Dubs at all. And you had that assist in the second half. I just remember Mannion down in front of me just going once at Brendan Harrison, didn't go, went the second time. Just said, fuck this, and he turned around on his left foot and kicked it over the bar from 35. Like, you literally couldn't do that in the first half because the wind was strong. So there was a few bits in the 12 minutes where they attacked it, but I think they've done that to every team this year.
Straight after half time.
At some stage in the second half they did it at Cork. The only team that didn't do it to was Roscommon because they probably did it in the first half. Every other second half has been really, really strong. So
I think a factor on that as well, though, is you were coming off 6 games in how many weeks? 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think we had 1 week off. But I think that can work both ways. I think it can work in terms of you get a physical freshness and sharpness. Like the way I'd have looked at that going into the game, putting a positive on it would be, okay, Dublin haven't been tested yet here. We've had a huge test, let's go at them. Do you know? But when the test came in the second half, they were well able for it, you know?
Yeah, but I think you can put that positive spin on it, and you have to for your own mental sake. But like, you're coming into where Dublin went against Tyrone.
Just because you've been getting battered now, don't be trying to turn it on him.
Point it on. It's that chair, don't sit there.
She's with us. You know?
But I think like Dublin came in off that Tyrone game having given a few lads a bit more of a run.
Big time, yeah.
You know, and it was just a fresher feel. Like, you can overanalyse things as well, but I just think Dublin were in a better place going into that game as well. And if you look at every game this year, after half time is when they unleash.
Do you think that is they're anything in the plan? I remember looking at one stage, Dublin at 15 behind the ball, like everyone in the first half, and I was thinking it's very, very unusual. Yeah, sometimes they get into that shape because they follow their men, but they were actually in the shape of 15 behind the ball. I wonder, is it something they're working on?
I actually think they might have been a little bit nervous going into that game, because if you look at 2018, they were never put to the pin of their collar. They didn't play Mayo, they didn't play Kerry. It had been the first time in a long time that one of their real rivals were coming in, and I think there was a little bit of anxiousness, and I think they were nearly waiting to see what Mayo were going to produce. And I think they're in a little bit of a habit now that they've so much trust and faith in themselves to be able to work it out on the pitch and to be able to get there in the end, that they nearly look at what other teams are going to do, and they have been good enough. Now, it's a risk, and I suppose if they produce a first half performance like they did the last day, this Sunday, Kerry are capable of getting a couple of goals and a change of dynamic, and the 2 points was probably never going to be enough, and particularly if the wind, if you're on the pitch and you know it's going to be a challenge kicking into it. But there's part of me that thinks Dublin are kind of so controlled in themselves at the moment, they're very sure in themselves that they're near. I don't think it's intentional that they're going out and starting slowly, but there might be a little bit of an element of let's go out and see what they're going to produce, how we need to adapt that a little bit, and then we'll do what we need to do.
That's obviously, Denise, as well, a huge mental advantage for Dublin heading into this final, that Kerry, even if they do start well, even if they do get a couple of goals and they're leading at half time, in the back of your minds you know the onslaught is coming at some stage, and there must be a nervousness that would come with that.
Yeah, and I just think the Dublin team, I think Mickey said it, it's just such a team, and I think the difference is they're not relying on any one individual within a game. And don't get me wrong, like Can O'Callaghan is putting in super performances, individual performances, or Fenton probably hasn't even reached the highs that he can during the season. But I think unlike other teams, they will play each other out of it. They will play as a team, and they will get over the line. I wouldn't be that worried about the Kerry onslaught or Kerry. I think Kerry will come down very, very bull-headed into the match. I think they want to be the people to stop them, but I don't really see. I just think Dublin are too strong. I think they've too much depth on the panel, but I think more importantly on the pitch, nobody particularly. There's a great humility about the team, and I think they're going to beat them.
Simple as that. Denise mentioned Con. Andy had mentioned one of the points that Paul Mannion kicked, and kicked a point from either side during that semi-final were just out of this world. Pillar, those two players in particular this summer, and the level they've got to and the skill set that they have, and that Kerry defence that there's still question marks over. It's hard to see them keeping them at bay for a full 70.
Yeah, I suppose looking ahead to Sunday, I would think that both sets of defenders are going to be under pressure. I would have massive respect. I was down in Tralee at the National League game, and Kerry tore into that game that night. Now, Dublin weren't long back off a holiday, and they hadn't much work done, but it still developed into a huge contest. And Kerry, some of them young fellas would take an awful lot of credit from that night, an awful lot of confidence from that night going forward. I do believe that this will be a very high-scoring final, and I do believe that both defences will be under savage pressure. The battle around the middle is going to be fascinating because, I agree with Mickey, Cluxton's the greatest exponent of goalkeeping that we've ever seen. You have a young, raw Kerry keeper whose kick-out is a little bit suspect. So I think he's going to be under savage pressure in terms of trying to get his kick-offs. Is this Kerry team mature enough physically to go and really press Cluxton's kick-out? And I think there'll be a big swing in Dublin's favour in that. But the battle around midfield, Jack Barry has a great record on Brian Fenton. He's marked him in 4 games. Fenton's only got 1 point off him. And he goes out and he's a man marker. You don't see it often at midfield. So it'll be interesting to see if Kerry trust and throw him back into that equation. David Moran is having a fantastic year, so he'll obviously probably match up with Michael Darragh-Macaulay. So there's a lot of fascinating individuals, battles, and plus I would have huge respect for the forwards that Kerry are bringing. There's the X factor with, does he throw Tommy Walsh in at the start and try and throw a curveball at Dublin?
What would you do?
I would throw him in to start. I don't think Kerry can win this game coming from behind. If I was the Kerry manager, I would definitely go and say, look, I'm really going to go at this Dublin team and try and rattle them. I would hold back maybe Jack Sherwood or Gavin White or some of them speed merchants to come in for that third segment of the game and bring a bit more pace into the game. But I don't think Tommy Walsh has any business coming into this game for the last 10 or 15 minutes, because I think if Kerry aren't in the game at that stage, they ain't coming back.
What would you do, Mossy?
From a Kerry perspective,
would you start Tommy Walsh?
I wouldn't start him.
No, neither would I.
I don't.
Why?
I was hoping the corner forward union would go together here. Yeah.
I understand Pillar's point, but I just think he's had such a short. Like he came on and had a good game the last day, and I hope this doesn't come out wrong, but part of me thinks he got so much praise because it was the story, it was Tommy Walsh, and because it was the comeback, and because it was everyone likes that story. But in terms of, he did make an impact on the pitch, but
the surprise factor's gone.
I don't know if it's a surprise factor. Like, I don't know if they come out and they put him in on the edge of the square and they bomb balls in on top of the Dublin full back line. I don't know. To me, that's a little bit kind of desperation. Kind of, what are you saying, that your game plans worked out here? I actually think Kerry in a really good place. They're in an ideal place going into the game. And I think the league game, I genuinely think that is a big factor on it. And the little bit of needle at the end of the game as well. They got under Dublin's skin down there, and it's the first time in a while a team have really got at them a bit like that. And I know when we were under Mickey and Pat, we talked about it a number of times. We used to target league games because we couldn't beat Tyrone or Kerry in Championship in those 2000s. So they were big games for us. Like, we beat Kerry down in Killarney in 2010, and they'd won the All-Ireland in 2009. So again, they were probably late back, but it didn't matter to us. That was a big line, and that was something for us that we said, we've gone down there, we beat them in the league in 2011. So when we were going into that final, we had that sense of, we can do this, we've been in that situation before. And that's why I thought down in Tralee that night, again, the league went well for Kerry. They blooded a lot of new players, they got a lot of experience, they were good in Munster. The 2 Super 8s games will stand them. Last year they came up against Galway in the first Super 8s game, flopped, and that was them done for the year. Really impressive against Mayo. And then I actually think the Donegal game, getting to go toe to toe for 72 minutes in Croke Park in a game that ultimately, whether they won or lost, wasn't really going to define their season. That's a great way. There are a couple of great learnings they will have taken from that coming into it. So I actually think it's set up. I think you'll see a big Kerry performance, and I think it's a long-winded way of saying, I think to change all of that to put Tommy Walsh in, I think is too much of a risk, and I think it's something that they'll end up sticking with what's got them there.
And I think the dynamic, like, you have once in a generation player in Clifford, who's like, I was looking at the Tyrone game and I was thinking, Joe, come on, and then he had 5 points kicked. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? And then you have Gainey, who's playing, I think Gainey's playing the best football he's played in 4 or 5 years, and he's a fellow I admire greatly.
So Stephen O'Brien.
And Stephen O'Brien, and then you have Sean Shea, and then all of a sudden you have Dublin coming out in the third quarter, and you're thinking, okay, how will we quell them? Maybe then it's the time to put Tommy Walsh in and make it long, so that Dublin can't, like what they did to our kick-out, really expose our kick-out and then drive on, you know, when they really squeezed in on us. So maybe then is the time to maybe lengthen it. Like, Tommy Walsh, I think, will have a big part to play myself personally, but I just don't think it's from the start, you know.
It's hard not, though, when you think of Kerry, to think of the defence and that game against Mayo, when you ran absolute riot in the semi-final a couple of years ago. And is that Kerry defence markedly different now than it was then?
I would say it's probably not different in terms of personnel, but to have one factor in it. And, you know, Donny Buckley is there. And what Donny Buckley did for us against Dublin is what he set us up in the right format. Himself and Stephen Rochford and Tony McEntee set us up in the right format to try to hurt, as we all agree here, Cluxton probably the greatest goalie of all time. His kick-out, try to hurt it as much as he can. And he still has that knowledge. Like, you have to remember, this guy is going in after being with us for 6 years, seeing like how we kind of hurt them, never got over the line, but seeing how we kind of hurt them, and now he's bringing this with footballers who I think are at the peak of their powers. Where if you look at our forwards, Killian was a bit injured all year, Diarmuid was just back from a hand injury. Joe, those questions. If Clifford here ready to rock, if Gainey ready to rock, Sean O'Shea ready to kick his free, score a few from playing, Stephen O'Brien. At the end of the day, do I think they're going to win? I still think Dublin are going to win. But I'm just saying, there's an argument there to say that, as Pillar was saying, Kerry could get to 20 points. The only problem is Dublin could get to 30. That's the only problem, you know. I think personally, I think Kerry will get to this golden 20-point mark, and I think Dublin will probably get to about 26.
For me, it'll end up, the reason I believe Dublin have won so many All-Irelands in the last couple of years is because they've had the best squad. Yeah. And ultimately that does make the difference. The amount of games either Mayo or Kerry in recent years that in those last 5 or 6 minutes they know the subs are going to come in and make an impact. They know guys are going to make good decisions when the game is on the line.
Pass.
Yeah, and they exactly, and they have a number of guys that can do that. And for me, when I look at this Kerry team, we've listed all the players. They can absolutely hurt Dublin. They can absolutely put up big scores. They can rock Dublin. Whether they have 5-6 guys to come in, if they can get it into that home stretch and really push on, I think that for me is the biggest question. That's why I still think, and the Dublin bench evolved is probably the wrong word, but like you've seen, will Kev Mack have the same impact he probably hasn't had this year as he had in recent years. So you're looking at Cormac has obviously come on in All-Ireland finals and made a difference. Dermot has come on in an All-Ireland final and made a difference. So there's guys there that they can look at. Then you throw a younger guy in, Paddy Small, who has that. He's serious pace and he's very direct and he's accurate. You know, so Jim has options there, as he always has. I think that's the thing that Kerry are going to have to match coming into those last.
The other thing that I suppose Kerry traditionally had in terms of Mark O'Shea was a fantastic man marker cornerback. Like anybody remembers the 2014 All-Ireland, the job that Aidan O'Mahony did on Murphy that day, like he never left him alone the whole day. He absolutely did an ultimate man marking job against Donegal that day. They don't have that animal or two animals in their back line now. Crowley, he did his cruciate, he got the winning point against Dublin that day. He's a good man marker and he's a stopper. But I look at this Kerry back line and they might become a great set of defenders, but I really don't see, you know, and you mentioned like Con and Mannion, like the form that they're in, and if they're left one-on-one and get any type of quality ball, I wouldn't like to be the last man back.
What about the weight of history though, Eamon? What if Dublin bottle it under the pressure?
You know what?
I just couldn't contain it for that long.
You're asking the question that nobody in Dublin is. You're asking the question in terms of this group of players, like, you know.
Do you think it's any sort of a factor?
No, zero. No, and I would know a little bit. I would know a little bit about, you know, how good of a manager Jim Gavin and Declan Darcy and his backroom team are. You know, there will be no complacency. There will be no fear factor. It will be, as Jim would say, all about the process. These fellas are in a bubble. That won't come into it. Absolutely won't come into it.
Yeah, I think like on that, I heard Johnny Cooper do an interview, and he said, "Oh, we didn't even know we were going for 5 in a row." The best line.
That gets bonus points from Jim, I'd say.
And but to an extent, like you have to normalise it. And Dublin have approached every game as a game-on-game situation. Like, you know, 5 in a row, that's external talk. That's nothing is going into that camp now. And if it is, it's being beaten out of the lads. And I think they're all on their toes at the moment, from 1 to 35. Like, you know, the players that even aren't going to make the bench are vying to stay on the panel. Like, you know,
but there's been a lot of talk this week about that this may be the end of the road for a lot of this squad, that they're hanging on for the 5 in a row, that maybe even Jim Gavin is hanging on for the 5 in a row, that the likes of Bernard Brogan, Michael Dara, Macaulay might be thinking this is like that's in their heads, that the 5 in a row is something like, that could be an end point.
But like, look at Flinner. Flinner made a big call there after a National League against Cavan in the last game of the National League, and then he didn't have a great game that day, and then he had a long wait to the beginning of the championship, and it played on his mind. But he wasn't thinking of 5 in a row and hanging around for a medal. And he's been just an unbelievable, probably one of the best servants of Dublin football over the last 5 years. And I think they're your leaders. So they're the ones that you want talking in the dressing rooms, the likes of him, the likes of Stephen, the likes of Bernard that have been around. But they're not talking about 5 in a row, like they're talking about driving the team on. And if Flinner couldn't put himself in a position to drive the man who had his jersey, push him, he knew he wasn't going to make a difference and it would affect Dublin at some stage. So that's the kind of level you're dealing with. It's not about like the glory of the 5 in a row. That all comes afterwards, but I think from Dublin's collective at the moment, it's about a far bigger thing internally.
The other thing, Nathan, for a lot of the young fellas who come into this is nothing about 5 in a row. Like, you take the likes of Brian Howard, who's been phenomenal in the last 2 seasons. Like, he's going to play in the second All-Ireland final. Niall Scully, Owen Merchant, all these young fellas that are, you know, the history of it, and like, you know, talking to Mickey earlier on, like, it's been driven from a Kerry agenda. Do this Kerry team want to be remembered, the team that allowed Dublin win 5 in a row? So I think the nerves could be actually in the Kerry team on Sunday, not in the Dublin team.
Yeah, I think there's a. I think one of the other big advantages, and you talk about what works in Dublin's favour, it's being in the city, it's being here. As in, there's so many places that the Dublin lads can go. They can walk down the street and they could be in Grafton Street tomorrow, and Cian O'Sullivan will walk down the street and you might get one person the whole length of the street.
Cian O'Sullivan will get a few people looking at him, I'd say.
He's a good-looking man as well. So. Well, like, as in, but they're not going to be. And like, I was looking at a bit of like, there's a 72-page pullout in the Kerry newspaper today. Like, I'm sure the Herald will run something, but the reality is...
The Mayo News would laugh at such a thing.
Yeah,
72?
And so I can imagine, like, Andy will obviously sit here and, like, any of the players, particularly the younger guys, like Brian Howard, Owen Merchant, they could walk down the street tomorrow. Guys, some people will recognise them, but no one's going to stop them and ask them about the game or ask them about something silly like tickets or different things like that. Whereas I can only imagine walking down a street in Mayo, or what the Kerry lads are getting this week. You walk 10 yards, David Clifford walks 10 yards in Killarney, he's not getting away from someone talking about it. So and like, so when they don't have to deal with that on a daily basis, I think it's a lot easier to then just go back to being treated, and like, it's human nature. Of course they know it's 5-0, of course they know in the back of their mind it's a historic thing, but it's so far back there, and they're not being reminded of it 50 times a day. I think it's something that they'll be able to deal with, and I don't think it'll be
an interesting fact, Nathan. There's 17 of this Kerry squad are playing in the first All-Ireland senior final, plus the management team. Now, that's a huge disadvantage. Like, I there is the small part of me that thinks if it's a fine day and this goes well for Dublin, there could be a right clipping in it. I tend to have too much respect for Kerry because I come from the era where we couldn't beat Kerry, so I would still have mass respect, and having seen them up close, I think he's coming with a lot of pace and a lot of really good forwards, and I think it will be tight, but there is a small piece of me that thinks this could go off and wrong for them as well.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a huge surprise to anyone if Dublin won this by 8 or 9 points. Or am I wrong? Let's get our predictions.
We take one.
You take one. Are you going at one? By the sounds of it, you think a bit more.
Look, it's the dream final in a load of ways. There's been a fantastic rivalry with Mayo, but if you are looking at this as a once-off game, I think Kerry being in the showpiece is apt.
Eamon?
I think Dublin by about 3 or 4, and why I say that is because I think someone like John Small will do an unbelievable job, and Stephen O'Brien, I think that's going to be the new Lee Keegan and Diarmuid Connolly matchup for the next few years. And I think with Dublin's forwards, Conn, Mannion, Scully, Cormac, the way they just get the ball and run at defenders, they can really open them up, and with an inexperienced keeper and a probably not physical enough full back line, I think that's why Dublin will win.
Mossy?
Yeah, I believe Dublin are going to win, but I genuinely do believe it's probably going to be the toughest game they're going to have in terms of, I think it will be in the melting pot coming into the last 10 minutes, and I do think there will be a stage of the game where I think the stadium will be rocking, and there'll be a lot of noise from Kerry fans. They'll feel they have the upper hand, but I do think the Dublin bench is going to be enough to get them over the line, and I think they're going to see an impact there, and I think that'll, whether it's 2, 3, 4 points in the last couple of minutes, they might open it up.
We'll finish up on the neutral point of view, so Denise, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, like I said, I think Dublin are going to win. I do think the Kerry backline, I think they'll have to work it out. I think they'll find it hard to keep tabs on the Dublin forward line. I also think Dublin may have a slow start, no more than in the Mayo game. It could be tight going in at half time, but I just think Dublin have too much about them. Maybe because coming to it so late, I don't have that whole thing of Kerry. I understand the whole rivalry in that, and I do get that they're an up-and-coming team and their forward line have great individuals, but I just think Dublin will, as a team, really outbeat Kerry. I think 5 or 6 points.
Mickey? Hang on 1 second, Mickey. We'll get you a microphone, and then everybody will be able to hear you down the back as well. 1 second there.
With the possession that Mayo had in the first half, they should have been 8 or 9 points ahead. If Kerry get that, it'll be all over. It'll be a totally different game. So, on a given day, any team can beat another team, but it's not going to be, in my view, it won't be a big margin. Kerry they have a phenomenal full forward line, and if they can keep dumping balls into them and getting scores, they're going to pose a big problem to Dublin. I just think that if Dublin get a grip on the game, they're going to be very difficult to beat. But I'd never write off Kerry, ever. That's it.
Making great stuff.
Yeah.
Andy, look, you've been part of a team that has pushed this Dublin side to the pin of their collar, and you've been part of a squad this year that took a beating from them. When you look at that group and you compare them to other sides, even over the last 16, 17 years have been an inter-county player, like, is this far and away the greatest side you've ever seen?
Jeez.
Say no.
Yeah, but you have to think about it. We were talking about a guy here earlier, Jim McConnelly. Like, I think the best forward of my time playing. People wouldn't agree. No,
he hasn't finished yet.
I think it's Bernard Brogan. I just love the way he used to be just able to finish. Like, Bernard is another one of these guys. He mightn't do anything. He's won 5 hits, and you're thinking, how did that just happen? Do you know what I'm saying? So, and I think he always kind of produced on an All-Ireland final day. So, to say it's the best team ever without them two not starting, I think we'll hold our horses yet now. But it's the best Dublin team ever. Sorry, the best of this generation. This is an unbelievable team, you know. But in terms of the game on Sunday, I think Pillar made a good point. If it's a dry day, I think Dublin win. I think they win well. Kerry needed to rain. They need their goalie to have a sensational game, and they need them elite forwards that we're talking about: the Stephen O'Brien, the Sean O'Shea, the David Clifford, and the Gainey, and if James O'Donoghue's fit and Tommy Walsh when they come on to have serious games, and that's to put them into the game. That's to give them a chance. But that is a possibility. You can't write off that possibility. My point of view is, I've always said, to beat Dublin you have to get over 20 points. I genuinely think Kerry will get over 20 points, but I think Dublin will get 40.
Yes, that's the confidence.
I do think Dublin will get to 25, 26 points. I just can't see them. And like, you have to think about it, like, to get to 20 points in a game is so hard. Like, that's a point just over 1 every 3 minutes. Like, it's such a hard thing to do, both physically and to have your shooting accuracy up. And I think Dublin will just get to 25, 26 points.
To get to that number, Kerry are going to need goals.
They're going to need goals.
There's no doubt. Like, I think if they're going to have any chance, they're going to have to get 2, if not 3 goals. And I think that's the only way they get to keep pace with Dublin.
And I think they need them early.
Yeah.
I actually think they need the goals early, because if Kerry get the goals early, then Gavin White and somebody else can shift back, and then they can play with 2 or 3 sweepers. Yeah. But if they don't get them early, I don't think, if they get them in the 50th minute, I think Dublin will still have enough. Do you know?
It's unanimous up on stage. What are we thinking down there? All right, we will have lots more to come off the ball over the course of the weekend. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We've got a brilliant welcome here at St. Vincent's. I want to thank Super Value for taking us around the country all summer. We've had a really good time putting together these shows. Give it up for our brilliant guests, for your very own Mickey Whelan. For Pillar Caffrey. Be nice to Eamon Fennell. Future under-5s coach, Mossy Quinn. The great Andy Moran. And the brilliant Denis Masterson. Thank you all very much. Enjoy Sunday. The drive for 5 is well and truly on. Enjoy it all. Good luck. Thank you. Good night. Safe home.